I just never saw another thing that could bring the kind of returns that real estate does with the and give you the same type of freedom, you know, which was for me probably the number one thing, just having that ability to be able to do what I want when I want.
I am Christina Suter, and this is the Real Estate Breakthrough Show, where we talk about the reality of real estate, the mindset you need in order to face the reality of what it is, and tips and tricks to get you moving forward in investing. I am your host, Christina Suter. So I'm super excited. I know I say that a lot, but I am, because I have never actually had a chance to interview Cortney Jones before. She is new to me, just as she is going to be new to you guys, but she is a REN chapter leader. So as you know, REN is near and dear to my heart as a female leader in the real estate industry. In my little, I was just talking about before our interview, in my little microcosm of being an ant on the face of this universe, right? My little microcosm, REN is one of the many associations, you could call it, of real estate meetings. And I love REN because it is female focused. And so being a chapter leader is something that really requires you being willing to be committed to your community, committed to being a leader. And it also helps you be a leader. If you weren't a leader before you start running a meeting, you're going to be a leader after you start running your meeting, because people perceive you that way. And it gives you the perfect permission to make a change in your universe by being a leader. Okay, my universe, right? I'm an ant in the universe. So in my little tiny field of being an ant, okay. But still, it feels good. It feels good. So let me read Cortney's background to you, and then we can hear her story, and we can understand real estate from her 30 plus years of being involved in real estate. Okay, so this is Cortney's webpage. So Cortney Jones is a 30-year veteran to the world of creative real estate, having completed over 650 transactions and been the managing broker owner of a real estate brokerage and investment company. She brings her experience, expertise, and mastery, because after 30 years, you definitely get all of those, to others as a REN chapter leader, national trainer, speaker, and coach. Cortney has authored several courses on creative real estate and continues to blog and podcast. Thus, you guys are looking at her website, so you can find her regularly to provide training to those seeking to enter the field. Cortney's passion to help others shows through in her training, her coaching, and her volunteer work. Whether she's speaking in front of a group, writing a blog post, cheering on her daughter's volleyball team, or advocating for abused children, something profoundly important in this world, in my mind, Cortney delivers 100% enthusiasm, energy, and passion. Cortney is married and has a 16-year-old daughter. Family time is spent traveling the world, geocaching, hiking and being at volleyball tournaments, or rocking out and floating in the pool, which I am sure in Phoenix is a common activity.
Very.
Together they reside in Phoenix, Arizona. So Cortney, I'm so glad you're here.
I'm glad too. Thanks for having me.
It is awesome to have you here. So best real estate tips and 30 years experience in real estate means that you might have, because you don't look like you're 31, not to be insulting, you might be about 35. So that meant in the 4 years before you started real estate, you did something before real estate.
Yes. Actually, I was a college student.
Okay.
And I worked in a real estate company, which we did property management nationally for apartment buildings. So that was kind of how I got introduced into real estate. I was an admin assistant. It was my first job. I was going to college at night and working during the day. And we managed properties, and like an entire apartment building would be like, say, 350 units, but each of the units was owned by a different investor, and all of them kind of pulled together, and we managed the whole process. So we managed 15 apartments at the time, and I was, literally fresh out of high school, working as admin back in typewriter days when it took an entire day to make a flyer for anything. So it was my first introduction really into real estate.
Yes, I can understand that. And it did take, and given that, by my estimate, given you're 35, you were 4 years old, that's pretty amazing that you ran a typewriter at 4 years old. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a child prodigy and genius. What can I say?
Clearly a child prodigy and genius, clearly. So it's a lovely way to start in real estate. So it almost sounded like you backed into it. It wasn't intentional that you started in this sort of real estate admin job.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was literally, back in the days when there was newspapers, there was an ad in the paper. I didn't care that it was real estate. I cared that it was a job I could get hired for. And real estate wasn't even honestly, when I worked there for a couple of years, it didn't make me want to be an investor. It didn't open my eyes to investing. It didn't, and none of that actually even came to mind until a couple of years later. So it was kind of strange.
Okay, so tell me your next step. So you worked there. I know property management is not the glamorous side of real estate. It's actually
brutal.
It's actually full of a lot of the pains of real estate. The tenants, tantrums, and toilets exist under the property manager. And so you get the bulk of that kind of chaotic frustration. Like I was trying to explain once to somebody, like, you own a building and hopefully you have one property manager, right, that you're dealing with, or one company that you're dealing with. That property manager, if you have a 30-unit building, multiply by 2.5 people, is now dealing with 75 people for you.
Exactly.
Right? The chaos that they're facing for you, if with your building, is 75 people, and you're dealing with one company. Right?
All the more reason for everyone to buy flowers or cookies for their property manager today.
Today, send them a turkey today. I don't care if it's Christmas, exactly. Passover, Thanksgiving, whatever it is that you eat turkey for, send them a turkey today. Send them
something
today, right?
Yes. At least send them a text and tell them how much you appreciate them at the bare minimum, because it is just brutal work.
It is brutal work. No, it actually sincerely is. When I had a problem building, right? So I bought a bunch of small buildings first, like single families and some fourplexes, and then I bought an apartment building, right? And when I bought the apartment building, I was paying them, I think, 6%, right? So I was paying them this sort of like measly little like $600, $800 a month. And I'm like, the crap they put up with for this little chunk of money. I'm like, right. When I got deep into the building and I saw what this problem building was, I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel
then you start to feel really bad about nickel and diming them to death.
Yeah, I mean, you really kind of need to like appreciate. And then my email started with, thank you so much for what you do. Okay, so you went from this sort of property management, you're right in the middle of the muck of residential ownership, right? Yeah. And it is kind of mucky, right? Why did you even stay? Like, why weren't you running for the hills? Why you continued to move in the pathway of real estate? So what was next for you in that pathway of real estate? How did you grow yourself up as a real estate investor?
Yeah, so it was interesting. Obviously when you're going through stuff like this, you don't recognize it. You can't see the forest through the trees, if you will. And so what actually happened was, a friend of mine took me to a no money down buying seminar. And again, wasn't really thinking about real estate investing. It was sort of just something to do. I think it was like a date type of thing, and so we went to this seminar and I just sort of got educated. There was like 3 big name speakers. And I just sort of got educated on the fact that you could buy real estate with no money down. And that was kind of my first intro into it. And again, it really didn't click at that point. I really wasn't going, oh, I want to do that. I'm going to buy all these courses or anything. I think I bought a tape set or something, which I probably still have to this day. I don't have a tape player in the house, but I have that still. And so about a year later, my mom, it's sort of a weird story, but my mom lived about 1.5 miles from me, and I owned my own condo, and I was 19. And my mom moved out to Tennessee to run my uncle's marina, because my uncle had bought a marina, and my mom went out there, fell in love with it, and came home and said, I'm leaving. I have to be there in 2 weeks to go run the marina. Do you want to just take my house? And it'll be a bigger, upgrade for you. And I was like, sure, I guess. So, so my mom left and I took her house and she deeded the house to me, which we didn't even know that at that time that was called buying subject to.
Right.
I didn't know that. So I just started making her payments and I rented out my condo. And again, still wasn't really thinking about being a real estate investor. It just kind of all sort of happened. So I started making cash flow from my condo. And I really, at that time, didn't really think of it as, oh, this is a business, I should look into this. It was probably about 2 years later when I kind of just started all of a sudden putting the pieces together. Obviously, I'd matured a little bit, and I was about 20, 21 at the time, and kind of started thinking about, do I really want to continue to work at this property management firm? Where do I see my path? And the gentleman that I worked for was a certified property manager, so he was trying to push me into that path because he thought that would be a really good path. And I ended up going to another seminar, and then shortly after that, I saw a Carlton Sheets infomercial late at night. And I was like, I went to that one seminar. It was pretty interesting. I like the concept. I wonder if this is real. And so I ordered that course. And then I started kind of thinking about like the cash flow that I was making from my condo and how much it had appreciated in just a couple of years, and how I got my mom's house with, about $10,000 worth of equity in it when she just kind of gave it to me.
Right.
And it all kind of started to click together. And at that point, then I decided that was the path I was going to take. And I was going to become a real estate investor, whatever that meant.
Whatever that meant. All you knew is that you had some things that seemed to be working that made sense, and you could get educated versus being in the property management piece of it. You could be like in the ownership piece of it.
Right. Yeah, I guess at that time, in just a small amount of exposure to working in the real world, if you will, I was realizing that I didn't really fit in. I always kind of felt like that. I was always that student that didn't really fit in. I was always that, kind of person. I just didn't fit in. And in the work world, I just wasn't fitting in. I didn't like people having to tell me that I had to be to work by 8 o'clock in the morning. I wasn't a morning person, and I'm still not. And so I would prefer to work until 1 o'clock in the morning. Why do I have to be here at 8? Can't I come in at 10 and work when I want? And, so I kind of just started figuring all that out. And I guess as I got into my my own a little bit and kind of started figuring out who I was, I decided that I was just going to take this on and become an entrepreneur. And so that's what I did.
The true heart of an entrepreneur. I am an entrepreneur, and it's one of my favorite little lecturettes is my conversation about the true heart of an entrepreneur. People are like, well, you could get a job and, you've got a perfectly good college career. Why don't you do that? And I'm like, because you don't understand how unhappy I am when I have to be at the job at 9 o'clock and leave at 5 and then get up the next morning and do it again. That's a problem for me.
It's like Groundhog Day over and over again to me.
It's Groundhog Day. Like literally after a while I start waking up and I go, really? Is this what I have to do in my world? Like, can I get off the carousel now? It's a very nice carousel. It's not a lot of nice painted horses and, people getting off and on and stuff like that, but it's like a carousel. I'm going nowhere in my feelings of my life. I have an heart of an entrepreneur. I need to create for myself. Otherwise, I'm not going to be satisfied.
Well, and you just don't feel like you're flourishing the same if you're not living in what was intended for you. So I feel like I just was really super blessed and lucky to realize that early on, which is, huge.
It is huge because you can spend a lot of time being sort of drained down, or you can go, no, not for me. Let me make a different choice. And you did. So you realize that you became an investor, but you also are a real estate agent. So you also started your own company.
Yeah, I wasn't actually a real estate agent at that point. So I was an investor for about 2 years before I became an agent. And I was here in Arizona and started buying some properties and then became a licensed agent. Before I hung my license anywhere, I went out to visit my mom. So I was born and raised here in Phoenix, and I hated it as a kid. I couldn't wait to get out. And so I went out to visit my mom at that marina she was running a few times, and I fell in love with Knoxville. And I decided I was moving to Knoxville, that what I was doing, I could do anywhere. So I picked up everything and I moved to Knoxville. And so I lived there for 17 years before coming back here and now loving it. But when I moved there is when I started buying more properties. And then about I think about 6 years into doing rehabs, which is how I started.
Okay.
That's when I decided to get licensed. So
Okay.
it wasn't right off the bat. It's kind of just been a progression of things and figuring it out as I went.
Okay. So you went from property management company to owning some rental units to doing rehabs in Knoxville, Tennessee. And then what?
Well, I did rehabs for about 10, 12 years before I decided. Yeah, I know, right? And I mean, for me at that time, I honestly, other than my rentals, I never really thought of the rehabs as a business. It's really strange. When I tell this story, people are always completely confused by it because I'm so business minded and it's just sort of how my brain works. I mean, no matter what conversation we would get into, somehow I'll turn it into a business conversation. And so for me to say this, it is kind of weird. But at the time, my rehabs, I didn't really think of them as a business. So my husband had a business that we had started and we were working and it was flourishing. And the rehabs was sort of my lifestyle hobby, if you will, that generated a good amount of income. And so I did like between 4 to 8 a year. It just kind of depended on the year, but he traveled quite a bit with his business. So I wanted to be able to travel with him. And so it was sort of like, I kind of just did these rehabs on the side because I wanted something to do and it was fun and I could work for myself and I didn't have to be anywhere at 8 a.m. And I sort of just turned that into a business. And then one day I was doing an open house for one of my rehabs and like, we must've had 80 people through the rehab. And that's when it kind of clicked. And I thought, you know, a lot of these people want a house, but my house isn't the right house for them. And remember, I'm still kind of young at this stage. So things didn't always click right away. And I said, you know, I could become an agent and then I could help the other 29 people who want a house that aren't buying this house. And so I became an agent and started working as an agent a little bit. So then I was working as an agent as well as doing my rehabs on the side. So that was sort of that progression.
Okay. I'm just going to sound like a really weird question. You're a very busy lady, aren't you?
Yeah, it's funny. I've always kind of just been that way. I don't know if
I got that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I never really think of it that way because it's just always kind of been my life. But yeah, I hated being an agent though, so that didn't last long.
Just so you know, I'm a very busy lady too. I explain to people my background and they're all like, and you sleep? Like,
yeah, sure. Exactly.
Of course I do.
And when people ask me what I do, I have the hardest time because I'm like, honestly, ask me in that it depends on every 10 minutes. It's something different.
It's something different. It's something new and something different and something vibrant. Right?
Exactly.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's the advantage of being busy people is that we get to actually live like these parallel lives and they're totally good. We're totally good with that.
Right.
I'll be a flipper
Exactly.
and I'll be a real estate agent and I'm in a real estate agent business and I'm in a flipping business and it all works.
Exactly.
And the business mind just organizes it all. So it keeps moving itself forward.
Yeah,
right?
Totally.
So congratulations. It's good. So today, what are you doing today? Because I know you also teach courses. So there's another layer in there as well.
Yeah. So around 2004, I decided to make it a business, turned it into a business. And at that stage, we were buying my husband joined me in the company. Oh, okay. And we were buying 6 to 15 houses a month, kind of depending on the month. And we ran like that for about 4, 5, 6 years. And then we moved back here in 2009.
That makes sense.
And at that stage, my husband decided he didn't like being in the business anymore. He really actually never liked it, but I needed to hire somebody.
And it was tough. 2007, 8, and 9 were tough years. They were tough for everybody, right? So,
yeah, and he's not an entrepreneur. He's that guy that likes to be on the carousel and likes to know what's coming around at the time and all,
that's my horse. I'm going to get on. I feel really good. I'm going to go around. I'm going to get on.
I'm going to see that pole at the certain time every time I come around. And
my husband's an engineer. It works great for him. He loves it.
Absolutely.
Right. Absolutely. Yep.
Totally. So when we came back here, my daughter was about 4 or 5 years old. And really, I just wanted to start to spend a lot of time with her. I went through a lot of things to have her. She was kind of a little miracle. And I didn't have her till I was 37. So I really kind of just wanted to enjoy the time with her. So I did absolutely nothing for 2 years other than manage the property management companies that we had in place to manage our properties, which wasn't too much to have to do. And then when she started at school, I kind of started getting back into the business a little bit and buying more. And at that time, someone reached out to me, one of my mentors, and asked me if I'd be willing to coach clients for his company. And so I started, I got certified and went through a year-long training and all that, and started coaching people. And through that process, kind of found out that I really enjoyed that. And at that stage, we were pretty much set financially from our house perspective. So it was really more of a give back type of thing. Obviously I got paid, but I mean, it wasn't like I needed a full-time real estate business to kind of keep things going. So I started coaching clients, and I realized that I really liked it because I liked giving back. But again, it was sort of more like an employee type thing, which I'm not great at. And so I liked it, but I didn't like it on the terms that I was dealing with it with that perspective, because it was a 30, 40 hour a week thing. And that was just too much for me. And so I kind of scaled back from that and then just started kind of doing my own thing. So now my life looks like I said, depends on the day, but I spend most of my time just dealing with coaching clients, and I do partnership deals with them throughout the country. I love working with new people who are getting started, because I just love the fact that I know what kind of a lifestyle I'm going to be able to help them achieve. And I love that, because there's no greater feeling than being able to take your kid to school and pick your kid up every day and be there when there's a, art teacher needed in class, and, be there for every play and all that kind of stuff. So I really love that. I love the aspect of helping women, especially because usually the women are, the ones that are at home doing all of that and missing out on it and feeling the most guilt. I think for some reason we just feel guilty about it. So I love that. And that's what brought me to Renton. So it's all kind of come together. But the last few years, I mean, I have enough houses there. We got to the point where they were free and clear. My retirement plan is set. It's the way we intended it to be. And now I just kind of buy here and there when opportunities come my way. I don't focus a lot on it, but and then I coach people on the side a little bit and help them, and that's my life. It's awesome.
And you run your Phoenix meeting.
Yes.
You run your Phoenix meeting. So it really is, this is the story of the financially free through real estate retirement, right? Using your real estate for your retirement life. Like that is the American dream. If you're using real estate to get to your American dream, if you want to call it that, right? So, it's financial freedom through owning real estate, through paying it off free and clear. And I hope people who are listening, who are young to real estate, understand that that's part of your exit plan. Part of your exit plan can be you pay your real estate off versus continuing to leverage your real estate.
Right.
It's kind of an odd lesson, but you learn that over years, where it's a little like, no, I actually don't want to keep leveraging. I actually want to pay it off so that I pick up a nice big rent check. Right. And I don't have to send that rent check over to a bank. Right. I get to keep it in my account, and I know what my income is going to look like because it's very stabilized.
Right.
And then I get to do what I want to do with my freedom and my time.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about what you teach, and then I'll move on to like the second half of the show where we talked about, because I want to hear a little bit more about what you teach and what people can expect from your coursework. And, your brokerage, if they're in local Phoenix, if they want to understand how you run your brokerage. So let's hear a little bit more about that.
So what I teach is, I have 3 courses. So one is a wholesaling course. That's the basics of getting started in wholesaling, which is pretty much the easiest place to get started and to make big chunks of cash. Okay. One is a leads to deeds product, which is how to talk to sellers creatively. And how to get appointments for those. We're working on that webpage, so it's probably not up right now.
Rave reviews. I'm going to the rave reviews because you just.
Okay. We're redoing the product page right now. So it's leads to deeds, and it's how to talk to sellers and how to get more offers accepted. And then I have a raising private money course, which helps people overcome their fear to raising private money, and then gives them some tactical expertise on how to specifically go about raising private money and talking to people and that sort of thing. So those are the 3 courses that I have. And then as far as my coaching, what I really like to do is really kind of just get to know each person. I only work with 8 or 9 people at a time, just because I don't want to spend a ton of time. But I kind of start with, what is their vision? What do they want that to look like? And then I point out the reality for them of what that means. Okay. So like, somebody who is not good at managing things should not go into the rehab business, because rehabbing is all about management. It's about managing time. It's managing it's managing budgets. It's managing people, you know? And so if you're not good at managing, you don't want to do that. If you want big chunks of cash, then don't go into the rental business, because you're going to get $100 or $200 a month for a long time, you know? So I help them kind of match their business model with what it is they're trying to accomplish, and then take a look at their long-term goals. And then we create a plan for exactly what does that look like. We break that into annual plans to move forward. And then the first annual plan, we break down into quarterly, and then monthly, and then weekly, so that they have a clear action plan on exactly what steps to do to move them from where they are now to where they're trying to get to. So that's kind of how my coaching works. I work with them. They get unlimited access to me. So they get a link to my schedule. They can hop on as often as they want. For the most part, people do, you know, weekly calls. I have a couple that do more than weekly, but then you have others that you don't hear from. I have one guy I've been coaching for 7 years, and he says, I'll keep paying you because every time I talk to you, it makes me money. So I don't care. But he only gets on my schedule like every 3 months, you know, for a good hour-long, I need some help with these things session. So it just depends. So it's a lot of fun though. I enjoy it. And I really love helping people get to where they want to be and seeing them do that first deal. And when they get fearful, I'll do that first deal with them and partner with them on that deal, so we can kind of walk through it more in depth together and everything, which is great. I enjoy that a lot.
Okay. Makes perfect sense. Makes perfect sense. So let's go to then, like, real estate educates us, right? So we get educated in real estate, and then we take courses, which you've done, but, you know, maybe not extensively, but the greatest education, the deepest education comes from participating in real estate, as we know, right? And sometimes that education is a tough experience. So tell us your worst experience in real estate, what you did about it, how you solved it, and what you learned.
Wow. Gosh, you know, I have hundreds of transactions. I could probably come up with all kinds of drama stories, like the time the tenant pulled a gun on another tenant because she broke into his house, and all those types of things. But I would honestly say, looking back now, the biggest mistake I made in real estate and the biggest lesson I learned was probably from playing it safe when it came to expanding and growing. And so what I mean by that is, I commented a few minutes ago that my husband came into the business with me. Well, I was just at the point where I was doing so much. We got to the point where we were buying 5 to 10 to 10, 20 houses a month sometimes. And that's a lot of money coming through a business on a monthly basis. So when I had to hire, instead of looking for a true person that could help me build the business and grow it, I went with the safe option and asked my husband to join me. Even though I knew he didn't like the business, he liked what it produced, but he didn't really like the business, and he wasn't entrepreneurial, but it was safe to have him there. So I went with that as an option. And then when I needed to hire my first executive assistant, I went through a couple of others first, but then I brought my mom on board, and my mom worked for me as an executive assistant. So there's good times to that, in the sense that you are helping the people that you love get into the business and that kind of thing. But when I look at it really now, you know, 10, 15 years later, I did it because it was safe, not because it was the best people, not because those were the best people in the right jobs. And we could have grown a lot better, and things could have been better. But then when 2007 and 2008 hit and times were hard, and I had to start laying people off, it became, and by the way, I had an acquisitions manager that was a family member, and a salesperson that was a family member. So when I had to start laying people off a little bit and cutting corners, it's like, okay, now all of a sudden I'm doing that to family. And that was really, really hard. And then I kept people in positions too long because they were family, because I knew that they needed the money and that kind of thing. So if I were to say I made that would probably be my biggest mistake, because I was definitely playing it safe in that respect.
Okay. I can actually completely understand that, because I have learned over time that one of my holes, one of my soft spots is my loyalty.
Yeah.
And it actually creates me being in deals I either shouldn't be in, or working with people longer than I should, or having them do jobs that maybe isn't their optimal skill set, because I'm loyal to them.
Right.
Right. So my husband has helped me work literally, and reminds me, right, that I know I'm a loyal person, but at the same time, I need to be accountable to my business model, and accountable
Right.
to my clients, accountable to my investors, accountable to whatever it is, whoever it is participating.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So that's what you learned. What you learned is that maybe hiring the best qualified person outside of the family might actually be a better choice, is what I'm hearing you say.
Yeah, I mean, my mom, is a wonderful human being, and obviously I would trust her with anything, but
Right,
I mean,
exactly.
she can barely turn a computer on, and here she was, my executive assistant.
Yeah.
I mean, she took great care of buyers and sellers when they called, but
Right.
all the other stuff was just like, oh my gosh.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I would say, it's an easy thing. In my role as a coach now, I see a lot of people come into the business with their spouse.
Mhm.
And, that's fantastic that you get to spend that time to do things together. But I do think that whether it's your spouse or hiring your mom or your cousin or whatever, the thing to look at is that truly their skill set, or even something that they want to develop as their skill set, because they may
Or that
not
makes them
have it.
happy.
Yeah, it's fine
Yeah.
to develop people. I don't have a problem with that. But do they have the ability to do that? And are they going to be able to flourish in that job is kind of the thing to really look at.
Yeah, I think that's a very, very, very good and important questions, because when it comes down to the business of real estate, it is still a business model, right? So you need to operate it with some of the same skill sets as business. I like to use the example of, just because you love dogs and therefore you open a dog kennel, it doesn't mean you're good at running the business of a dog kennel.
Exactly.
It's really actually a different skill set. And I would go so far as to say is different personality than a person. It can be, right? Can be a different personality than somebody who is, a giver of dogs and wants to sit in the middle of the dog circle and teach and train dogs, right? Can be a very different personality. And so, yeah. So tell me, so you've reached financial freedom. Yes. Woohoo! Party in the house. You've reached financial freedom, which is what people want, right? That's why your story is inspiring. You said before we started the interview, like, people call your story inspiring, and you look at it and you go, well, I don't know if it's inspiring or not, but it's inspiring because you've reached financial freedom through hard work, 650 plus deals, running your own business, being able to flip multiple houses a month, which I would never want to do. That would be too hard on me. I'm not that good a project manager, right? That's not my best skill is people, not project management. There are details involved in project management. I'm good at people. Think of me as your mom. Right? So I wouldn't want to run that many. But you worked really hard, and then you've earned your financial freedom. You've broken through to that, right? So tell me why real estate was sort of like your chosen vehicle, if you can kind of reference that. But really, what was your why? Why become financially free? And what does it mean? Now that you're there, it's like, what does it mean to you to be financially free? Why is it meaningful?
I don't know that I actually consciously chose real estate. I think that I was too young to really make that a conscious choice, honestly, as I described my story. I think it just sort of happened. And I mean, for me and my belief system, it's not that I don't believe that it just happened. I believe that was, something that was intended, but
I agree with that as well.
I don't know that I ever consciously made that choice until much later. And obviously, every time another opportunity came about, I was making the choice to say no to that, to continue with this. But again, I don't really think I ever did it consciously. It's sort of just the way that things worked out. And then at some point, 10 years into it or whatever, that's just what my identity was. I'm in the real estate business. I'm a real estate investor. Yeah. And to change that then would become fearful. And, so I don't know that it was ever a conscious choice. Okay. What it's meant to me really is, more than anything, I would say freedom. I can't even put a dollar value on just, the ability to be able to wake up one day and, look at my daughter and be like, you want to play hooky today? Let's go to the zoo. And, and just kind of, make a day of just, I'll call you out of school and we'll go play at the zoo and we'll go to lunch and we'll go, to the water park. And I mean, that is just priceless to me. And I guess the benefit of going through all the problems I went through to have her meant not having her till I was later in life, then I really kind of had a really good opportunity to reflect on just how important that is. And by 37, I pretty much had things figured out. Although we talked about you at 47, you realize at 37, you didn't know. but I at least had enough reflection to say that this was an important thing and that I was going to make the time for her, and our family life and time is always the most important and always became a priority. So I think just the freedom of time is probably the reason that I stuck it out over and over again. I could never envision another job where I would get the kind of returns that I got from real estate. Whether it's a rental property where somebody else is making your payments for you and you're growing equity and, and hopefully some appreciation, or a rehab that you're just managing the time, but other people are doing the work. I just never saw another thing that could bring the kind of returns that real estate does with and give you the same type of freedom, which was for me probably the number one thing, just having that ability to be able to do what I want when I want.
Beautiful. That is the success story that people hope for, whatever it is they want to do with that freedom of time, when they want, what they want, when they want. And for some people, what they want is different, but the fact that they have the choice, it seems in my experience to be relatively universal.
Yeah.
If you have the heart of an entrepreneur, the choice over being able to do what you want is powerful.
Yeah, completely. And like now, my daughter's going off to college in a few months. So now I'm kind of at that stage where it's like, okay. Well, now what? I'm kind of like, all right, well, I just, as you've heard, I'm an entrepreneurial heart and mind. So I'm not going to just sit here and like lay out by the pool, although that's what people think they're going to do when they get financially free.
They do think that.
That's not me. I'm like on to the next thing.
I can't tell you how many people have come to me and gone, Christina, I'm financially free and I'm unhappy. Help. And I'm like, yeah, I know that one. you gotta find something to do with your time. Something that's meaningful, something that's purposeful, because otherwise it's no fun. It's
right.
Enjoyable.
Yeah. So maybe have me back in a year and a half and we'll see what the next stage of
Courtney is. Right. Yeah. So I spent 3 months hanging out by the pool and then I started a whole new company. That's what I'm expecting to hear.
That'll totally be it. I don't even know if I'll make it 3 months, but maybe if I go to the beach, I can do 3 months. I spent 3 months in Mexico and now I have these 7 companies.
Exactly. Because I got totally refreshed and I had a million ideas when I came back. Okay. So Cortney, tell people how they can get a hold of you. I know there's the best REItips.com, right? But is that correct? So walk me through it.
Yeah, so you can visit my website, which is bestreitips.com. And then I also have a Facebook page, which is called The Ins and Outs of Creative Real Estate Investing. And so on that page, we talk about how to buy properties, no money down, how to buy using owner financing and subject to techniques and things like that. Really, in all of my transactions, there's only been a couple where I've used bank financing for them. Almost all of my transactions have been some sort of creative, no money down type purchases. So I love to share those types of ideas with people and help them get, 0% owner financing deals so that all of your payments are going to principal and get those properties paid off a lot more quickly. So ins and outs of creative real estate investing on Facebook or bestreitips.com.
Beautiful. Thank you, Cortney. I so appreciate it. Thank you for making the time. I am Christina Suter, the host of the Real Estate Breakthrough Show. You can find me on Roku TV, YouTube, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and a variety of other platforms. Tune in next week for more information.